Welcome to this week's edition of Mountain Outhouse News. I'm your host, Jam. This is the crazy to happen in running this week. This week's stories include Goggins 4x4x48 challenge, Jam on Tam 200 miles, and Skizzle Fresh's birthday challenge. Thank you for all of the amazing feedback from our triumphant return to the show this past week with episode 193. I honestly wasn't sure anyone would remember who I am, what the Outhouse News is, or care about the news, but you all tuned in and I'm grateful for that. We begin this week with our very own Skylar Hall's birthday month of action, aka BMOA challenge. He's turning the big 33 this week and is aiming for 330 kilometers of running, 33,000 feet of vert, and is going for a sub 33 second 200 meter. As of March 8th, he's at 145 kilometers and 5,600 feet of climb. Can he do it? Find out later this month. He also capped off his birthday itself with a 33-mile run across the Bay Trail. The Boston Marathon turns 125 this year, which has been rescheduled for October, but due to lower than normal capacity limits, they will be opening up a virtual addition to the first 70,000 entrants, which is to all eligible runners over age 18. And get this, no qualifying time required and no time limit to walk or run the distance. This, of course, has caused a bit of a wave in the marathon scene from runners who often spend years and multiple attempts to gain an elusive Boston qualifier just to enter the prized marathon. The Road Runners Club of America, or RRCA, has announced its 51st class of Distance Running Hall of Fame inductees. This recognizes amazing athletes in distance, and this year we have 4. First is Marilyn Bevins, who won a marathon in Maryland back in 1975 and was the first to run a sub 3-hour Boston that same year. She placed as high as second at Boston in 1977 and ran a total of 13 sub 3s. Next up, Janet Charabon Bockham, who is a multiple-time American record holder and Olympic marathon trials runner. She set the 25K American record in 2012 of 1:24 and also a women's-only start American record at 10 miles of 52:12. Jennifer Rines is a multi-time Olympian who was 16th in Sydney at the 10K, 34th at the marathon in Athens, and 14th at the 5,000 meter in Beijing. She also won the 2011 USA Half Marathon Champs in 1:11. Finally, Dathan Ritzenheim, who had a prolific career from cross-country championships to the Olympic Games, where he placed 9th and top American at the 2008 Olympic Marathon in 2:11:59. He later went on to place 13th in the 10,000 meter final of the London Olympics. Our next story takes us in a totally different direction to the Marin Headlands and back to Mount Tam. Last week we talked about a new ladies FKT, and this week we check in with Michael Lee, who stepped things up a notch from his 2019 24 hours of running laps on Mount Tam. Back then he ran 8 laps of the mountain, totaling 100 kilometers with 20,000 feet of gain. This year, during the Jam on Tam event, he decided to raise the bar up to 200 miles, meaning 21 laps in total and some 55,000 feet of climb or more. Still waiting on his final posting to the FKT site, I'm sure, but looks to be somewhere just shy of 5 days for the effort. Before we continue, this week's episode of Outhouse News is brought to you by the Raised by Rams Vertical Challenge. This 7-day virtual climbing event takes place March 22nd through the 28th, organized by Aravaipa Virtual. Climb as many feet as you can with a global community of trail runners, earn badges for hitting vertical gain benchmarks, get awesome swag, and win prizes. Sign up by this Friday to guarantee your swag by race day. Learn more at aravaiparunning.com. And back into the news with Michael McKnight kicking off a huge training block this week and promoting the Racing for Orphans with Down Syndrome event. He ran 50 miles a day for 6 days straight, and then 21 on the 7th for a huge 321-mile week. That should serve him well as he preps for the upcoming Cocodona 250. Next, we hop over to Andorra for some shocking news as the country loses another beloved ultramarathon. Last year, it was announced that the Andorra Ultra Trail would be no more due to the effects of the global pandemic, and now the ELS 2900 says it is closing its chapter as well and will not return to Andorra. It sounds like local regulation and control over the mountain huts and trails, limiting and controlling access to the point that the event is no longer feasible. To Carls and Matt, sorry I didn't make it out there to take part myself. it looked incredible. Now for some sponsor moves back home. First up is Corey Woltering, who announced a new partnership with Smartwool. Not too surprising of a move, as Smartwool is also owned by the North Face parent company, VF. Also announcing a big move this week on the sponsorship front was Kat Bradley, who announced her signing with Brooks Running. Kat also made her return to racing this past weekend after close to a 2-year hiatus. Find out where at the end of the show. After his coverage of the Texas qualifier, Citius Mag's own Chris Chavez reveals he himself is lacing up the spikes, or maybe flats, and going for his very own sub-5-minute mile at the NYC Trials of Miles of Meat in New York City, May 21st. He of course did this only after begging for 500 likes on an Instagram comment, which he promptly received. Hey, which reminds me, if you're enjoying this week's show, please drop us a like on the video and comment below a story I missed this week. Ryan Gelfie, who's been competitive in the ultra trail racing scene since 2012, has been shifting his focus over the past couple of years away from trail races and towards FKT pursuits. Now he is going after something new with a 24-hour vertical climbing challenge. He tweeted out March 3rd that he will do this at Mount Ashland in southern Oregon at the end of the month and will be on skis. Hecklers welcome. Speaking of FKTs, we have a couple of interesting routes to share this week that I did not know about before. I love the creativity that goes into these events. Sergio Florian lured the Oahu Circumnavigation, a 135-mile route on Rhodes, entirely around the Hawaiian island. He accomplished the feat in 27 hours 15 minutes, taking over 5 hours off the previous best time. Also running the same day was Anna Albright, who reset the women's best time in 31 hours 9 minutes, also under the former record for the men. This was her 3rd attempt in trying to complete the route. She got it done. Now we head back to the mainland and a novel concept for a running route. Tagged 76 of the 79 peaks in the San Francisco area, 3 omitted due to access issues. Luke Wicker completed what we understand is the first ever San Francisco Round, at a distance of 65 miles with 10,300 feet of climb in a bit under 13 hours. Will this kick off a flurry of rounds being created across the states? Or is this a one-off tribute to the great rounds of the UK? Only time will tell. In Strava news, I'm eating my words from last week's show as I received an email this week that I was just dethroned on my brand new local legend status on Unknown Trail from Unknown Trail Junction to Unknown Trail Intersection. Thanks a lot, Allie Russell. Our viewer check-in of the week comes to us from the Beast Coast and a check-in from Joel Ziegler on some steep trails, or maybe off trail in Pennsylvania. He's got a shout out to a friend.
Hey Mountain Outhouse, this is Joel Ziegler checking in from the Beast Coast, specifically a 35% grade here in Pennsylvania. As you can see, the snow is almost gone, and we're getting really excited for these spring trail runs and trail races that are on the way back. And just want to give a shout out to my friend Matt Lipsy, who is a sub-ultra trail legend here in Pennsylvania. He is coming back from a real tough autoimmune sickness. So I wish him the best in his recovery, and we hope to see you out here soon again.
Joel, thanks for the check-in and sending that over. If anyone out there has a viewer story to include in next week's show, please send it my way. In another submission, this one from Nancy Hobbs, we have an update on Alex Nichols' Pikes Peak project. He's now at 40 consecutive months of summiting Pikes Peak. Yeah, that's now over 3 years worth of climbing the mountain in all sorts of weather and conditions. For a full interview, head over to the American Trail Running Association YouTube channel. Another week, another addition to the 100 by 100 mile club. This time it's Pam Reed, yes, the same Pam Reed who has won the Badwater 135 outright twice. Pam completed her 100th at the Grandmaster Ultra February 6th of this year, where she won for the women in 25:02 and was 3rd overall. Pam completed the feat on the eve of her 60th birthday. According to Ultra Signup, She ran her first 100 miler at Wasatch in 1992. Speaking of 100 of something in the running world, Yuki Kawachi has now run 100 sub 2 hour 20 minute marathons. Yeah, you heard that right. His latest was a 2:10:26 finish at the Hofu Marathon this past December. Think he's banged up after all that pavement? Nope. He followed this up with a personal best 2:07:27 at the Lake Biwa Manichi Marathon of Japan, placing 10th. No one has more sub 220s than Yuki. The world of multi-days has been rocked by the pandemic over the past year, especially hit hard as the logistics of holding a short-looped race over many days becomes extremely challenging to mitigate exposure. The latest victim is the EMU 6-day race held annually in Hungary. Not a huge surprise, as 85% of the entrants are normally international. They will reschedule for 2022. Be sure to tune in live every Tuesday night for the new Mountain Outpost pod. Join Skylar Hall and myself for an expanded look at what's hot on the running scene each week and ask us questions live in the chat. You can also catch it in audio format on all podcasts by searching Steep Life Media. It's been a while, but here is our Outhouse of the week, brought to you by San Juan County Adventures. Simply amazing. If you have an Outhouse to share, please tag us at Mountain Outpost on Instagram. And now for another triumphant return, we have a check-in from A Jizzle Whizzle, aka AJW, our Beast Coast correspondent.
Hey, Outhouse Nation, it's A Jizzle Whizzle checking in from the Beast Coast. So hey, I've been on a COVID sabbatical for the last year. But I'm coming out of the cave and just feeling thrilled about being back in the swing of things with ultramarathon running and with all things good in life. Looks like racing is still TBD for many of us, and we're really looking forward to getting back out there. I know here on the Beast Coast, there's some events that are getting ready to go. There's some that are still being on hold. I know that's the case in other places around the country and around the world. But wherever you are, here's hoping that you're getting out there and getting after it and tuning in here to the Outhouse to find out the latest and greatest from Jam and the team on all that's going on in running this week. From the Beast Coast, A Jizzle Whizzle.
In this week's bonus story, only available for Patreon supporters, I'll talk about what race is crowdsourcing prize money, for what purpose, and should we do it in ultras. Apparently, after receiving complaints about his performance while wearing vaporflies on the track, Mabulili Mathanga ran a 10,000-meter event on the track barefoot, setting a provincial record of 28:24. Although it appears he had pre-taped his feet, so wasn't completely unshod. A pretty incredible way to stick it to the haters. A new Wilderness Act bill in Congress, H.R. 803, seeks to not only protect large swaths of land across the U.S., but actually carves out some regulations for a couple of well-known ultras maintaining their pre-existing permit status through proposed new wilderness areas. Both the Hard Rock 100 and Angeles Crest 100 are named in the bill specifically, and if it passes, we'll have long-term permit approvals through their respective mountain ranges to keep their current courses intact. In this week's race results, we first head to Arizona for the Mesquite Canyon 50K 50 mile on the western edge of the Phoenix metropolitan area. Keith Coombs of New Mexico took the W in the 50 mile in 9 hours 16 minutes, about a half hour ahead of second place Montana Barchi. For the ladies, Saiko Uchida was third overall, winning in 10:08. She was followed up by Amber Hartwig, second in 11 flat. Next up in the 50K, Tyler Sprague of Flagstaff won in a tight race in 4:26, just a minute ahead of Nicholas Caruso, 4:27. For the ladies, it was Salil Gaylord winning her first ever ultra in 5:05, way ahead of second place Desiree Clark. And Kat Bradley stepped into the Mesquite Canyon 30K. California racing might be on its way back as we saw what might be the first real event since the pandemic with the Ranch 50K. There were 83 finishers, Brian Hannock taking first in 4:16:49, and first woman going to Caitlin Pohl, 5:31:05. There were a slew of other races across the country, including the Ozark Highlands 50K, where Marianne Stone came in first in 5:14, setting a big new course record, and Curtis Phipps was your first male in 5:07 in a tight battle with Joe Lyons, who finished just 38 seconds back. David Goggins was back with his 4x4x48 hour challenge for the second year. This free event has runners doing just that, run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours straight. Goggins went live on his Instagram at the start of each block, and runners from around the world participated in the challenge, completing a total of 48 miles over the 2-day event. We lost a key member of the trail and ultra community this week. Robert Rhodes, who had a sudden onset of aggressive cancer this year, had a rapid decline. I was going to include this story and ask for everyone to put him in your thoughts and prayers for a miracle recovery, but we learned just before this week's filming that Robert passed away just this morning. Robert was the man behind bringing the Trails and Motion Film Festival to many locations across the US. He hosted myself and Skylar back in Auburn in 2017. Robert was also a race director with Bay Trail Runners, where he directed such events as the Whistle Punk, Whiskey Hill Redwood Run, Mountain Bro House, and Vista Verde Skyline Run. Robert, you will be missed. Thank you for tuning in to episode 194 of Outhouse News. Be sure to subscribe to get the latest episode, and if you'd like to support the show, please join Steep Life Media on Patreon, where you'll enjoy bonus content each week, right from me for as little as $2 per month. We want to mention by name our $25 level supporters and up. At the $100 level, Brian Sands. At the $50 level, Squirrels Nut Butter, Mark Grabowski, Peter and Patty Curry, as well as our $25 level supporters, Carrie Savage, Michael Perez, Nick Bailey, Steve De La Cruz, and York Beach Runner. Finally, if you'd like to own this week's pair of Jam Jam sunglasses, check out the link below. Have a shitty week.